haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the top. After the Gemara discusses Kishufim and Zugois, the Gemara now adds additional things that are detrimental a person has to be careful from. Says the Gemara Amreish Lakish, Arba Devarim Ha'oise Oison Damoy Beroishoy Umischayiv Benafshoy. Reish Lakish says there are 4 things that a person does, then the damoy, his blood is on his head. He's going to be held accountable and punished after his death. And not only that, mischayiv benafshoy, he's the one to be blamed. Ve'elu hein, and these are they. Hanifne bein dekel lekoisa, one who defecates between a dekel tree and a wall. V'ha'oiver bein shnei dekolim, one who passes through between 2 dekel trees. V'ha'shoise mayim she'ulin, and one who drinks water that is borrowed. V'ha'oiver al mayim shefuchim, and one who passes water that has been spilled out. V'afilu shvachotoi ishtoi befonim, even if his wife is the one who spilled out the water in his presence. The Gemara now explains, Hanifne bein dekel lekoisel, that which we started off with Reish Lakish's first statement, that Dama benafshoy umischayiv benafshoy, Dama berosha benchayiv benafshoy, is somebody who defecates between a koisel and a dekel tree. Lo yamon ela deles le arba amos. That's when there's not arba amos in between them. Aval is le arba amos leslan bo, because then the shade has the opportunity to then go and not be mazikim. As long as he can get by, then he doesn't have the strength and ability to be mazik the person. All this is true when there's no daled amos, if there's no other derech for the shade to go. But if there's another derech, then there's no problem also. The second of the 4 statements that Reish Lakish made is ha'oiver ben shnei dekolim, and he qualifies loy amarn ella de loy paskinu rishus harabim. That's only when the public thoroughfare does not go through this, the 2 dekolim. Then that's when a person is going to be damaged and harmed when he goes between 2 dekolim. Aval paskinu rishus harabim leslan. But if the public thoroughfare does go through this area, then there's no problem. The shade has no power to then mazik this individual. The third is that one who drinks water that is borrowed is only talking about that of a child. However, that of a gadol is not a problem. Even if the katan borrowed, nami lo yamron elo bisodeh de lo shchichi. That's only in a field when there's not found much water. Then the shade is forced to then mazik this katan for its water. Aval bi'ir the shchichi the leslan ba. But in a city where indeed there's a lot of water, then there's no concern. Va'afilu bisodeh nami lo yamron elo maya. All this is only true when it comes to a sodeh, because of the water. Aval chamra v'shichra leslan ba. But if we're talking about a cup of either wine or beer, then there's no concern. The 4th of Reish Lakish's statements that if he is not careful, then damoy is going to be beroishoy and he's mischayev benafshoy, and that is ha'oiver al mayim shfuchin. He passes by over water that has been poured out. Loy amarn elo de loy askinhu be'afro. That's when ofar, dirt, was not scattered upon it, was thrown on it. V'lotaf behu roika, or saliva was not spit on it. Aval askinhu oitof behu roika leslan bo. But if indeed it had any ofar that was poured on it, or any spit that was spit on it, then there's no concern. Ovar alayu shimsha, ovar alayu shitin nigre. That's also only talking about when there was not the sun that has then shone on it, or there hasn't been 60 steps that have been trotted upon it. Aval over alayu shimshav, over alayu shitin nigre less lamba. But either if the sun did shine on it, or there was trampling of 60 steps, then there's no concern. Also, there's no concern unless a person did not ride a donkey or did not wear boots. But if a person did indeed ride on a donkey, or if indeed he has shoes on, not boots, but shoes rather, then there's not a concern. Now all of this is saying that when there's no concern of kshofim, in other words, all of these things are talking about the shadim, the mazikin. But in regards where there's a concern of kshofim, then even these things will still then pose a problem and a concern that a person can be damaged by the kshofim. A person who was riding on a donkey v'sayim sani, and he was wearing shoes, the gamud misane v'tzavu kare. Here the Gemara brings an example of the danger of the sorcery of the kshofim, because this person was indeed riding on a donkey, and he had shoes that were on, and still we're saying over here gamud misane, his shoes shriveled v'tzavu kare, and indeed he himself also his shoes became shrunk, and he himself shriveled up. Not himself, but his kare, his foot shriveled up. It became, I guess, smaller, shriveled it became damaged. So here is a person who seemingly was protected from shadim, but still had damage from the kshofim. Tanu Rabban, the Gemara brings the following brayso: shloisha matzin v'lo mismatzin. There are three that a person, that two things, that something should not go between two individuals, and also an individual should not go between these two things. Ve'eluin, what are the things that we're talking about? Ha'kelev v'adekel v'aisha. So it means to say that a kelev should not go between two people, and also a person should not go between two dogs. Hadekel, the same thing. That means to say that a person, the dekel, should not be between two people, and two people should not also go, and a person should not go between two dekel trees. V'ha'isha, and similarly, when it comes to a woman, again, a man should not go between, or a woman should not go between two men, and a man should not go between two women. V'yesh oimrim af ha'chazir, and there are those that say even when it comes to a chazir. V'yesh oimrim af ha'nachash, even when it comes to a snake. V'im matzin maitakante, and if indeed we're saying that a person, one of these things went between two people, then maitakante, what is the remedy? Omar Rav Papa Niftach. Rav Papa says he should open up with the following pasuk and say the following. The pasuk states, "Kel motzia mimitzrayim k'toyafos re'em loy, ki loy nochash b'Yaakov v'lo kosam b'Yisrael, ka'es ye'omer liYaakov v'Yisrael ma poel kel." So the Gemara says, Rav Papa, Omar Rav Papa Niftach ke'el v'nafsik be'el. With these two names of Hashem, kel, that means each one should be a remedy when he starts with the pasuk kel motziyam, and he ends with the pasuk ma poel kel. So the pasuk, that very pasuk begins, it's actually two psukim. One begins with kel, and the other one, next one ends with kel. Inami, alternatively, niftach beloy v'nafsik beloy. Here the pasuk reads as follows: Lo ish kel v'chazev uben odam v'yisnachem hahu omar v'lo yaseh v'div v'lo yikameno. So here we say that he should open up with the word loy ish, and then the end of the pasuk says v'lo yikimeno. Hani Beitrei de matzah lahu isha nida. There were those two that an isha nida went in between. The Gemara retells, Im tchilas nidasahi hareges echad mehem. If indeed she was a nida in the beginning of her nida, he hareges echad mehem, she will kill one of the two. Im soif nidasahi ma'reva oisa beinehem. If she's at the end of her nida, she will then make a fight between these two people. I asked the Gemara, Maita Kante, what is the remedy in such a situation when she walks between two individuals? Niftach bekel v'nafsi bekel, the same remedy that we saw before. Hani trei nishedu yasbin beparshas drochim. There are two women who were sitting in the crossroads. Chade behagisa v'deshivila v'chade be'idar gisa. There was one sitting on one shvil, one pathway, in one direction, and the other one was sitting on the other pathway in the other direction, and they were facing each other. Says the Gemara, for sure these women are involved in sorcery. What's the remedy in such a situation when a person is going to then go past these crossroad? If there's another way to go, then he should go in that other direction, in the other derech. But there's no other pathway, then if there's another man together with him, then they should hold hands and together, and then they should go, and then they should v'nichlefu, and therefore there won't be a problem. They'll continue on. But if there's no other person, then what's the remedy? Neimahachi, you should say the following chant. Agras, Azlas, Asiya, Belusia. These are different names of Shin Dalet of Shedim. Miskatlo Bechek Kavol. Maybe they will be killed with the arrows of the crossbow. Haimande Poga Beitza Beida. Disalke Betfilas Mitzvah. A man who came in contact with a woman who had just been toivil in the mikvah, the night of her tvilas mitzvah. Iihu kodim umeshamesh. If he was the first one of the two to then have tashish hamita, then achdalei ledidei ruach zinunim. Then the ruach zinunim, the spirit of znus, will then grab a hold of him. However, if she was the first of the two to then have Tashim Shamita, then then the Ruach Zinunim will then grab upon her. My takante, what is the remedy for such a thing? He should say the following. Shoifech booze al nedivim. May booze, scorn, be poured upon those nedivim. V'yas eim betoyu loy derech. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. And may he then wander to in tohu without a path. What's meant by the following pasuk in Tehillim? Gam ki elech b'geitz al moves lo irara ki ato imodi. Even I will go in the shadows of death, I will not fear evil, because you, Hashem, are with me, says David HaMelech. Zehayashem b'tzel dekel yechidi u'b'tzel levana. This is a person who sleeps in the shadow of the dekel, a lone dekel tree, or the shadow of the levana, of the moon. U'b'tzel dekel yechidi lo yamon ela deloy nafil tulo dechavre ilave. When is it going to be a danger? When he sleeps in the shadow of the dekel tree. That's when there's not another dekel tree that also then casts its shadow upon it. Aval nafal tulo dechavre ilave leslam bo. But if there is a shadow that is cast upon from a second dekel tree, then it's not going to be a problem. Eloho detanya. The Gemara asks from this brisa, Hayoshen betzel dekel yechidi bechotzer. Vayoshen betzel levana dama b'roshai. One who sleeps in the shadow of the lone dekel tree in a chotzer. and he sleeps in the shadow of the moon, then damo beroishoy, then he's going to be held responsible. He's going to be held accountable for his day, for the oynish that he got. Heichidami, what's the case that we're talking about? If it's a matter of another decal tree that did not cast its shadow upon it, then even a sada also. Why does it mention of a chotzer? It should be true equally when it comes to a sada. Ella lav shmamina bechotzer afal de nafil tulu de chavrei lavei. Rather, we'd be saying that in a chotzer, even if indeed another decal tree casts its shadow on it, shmamina, indeed, we can derive this and prove that this is so. Uvetzila shelavon, and that which we said, if he sleeps in the shadow of the moon, lo yamon ela b'ma'arva. That's only true when it is in the west. In other words, the shadow is in the west. That means that the moon is in the east. But if it's the opposite, that means that he has the shadow cast upon him in the east. That means that the moon is in the west. Then leslan ba is not a concern.